Susan, by the way, this move from the White House to fire these inspector generals, despite a 2022 law that requires Congress to be given 30 days notice from the administration, what exactly does that tell you?
It says that Donald Trump does not want his administration to be held accountable for anything. He believes, wrongly in my opinion, that he has a mandate to go into government and do whatever he sees as fit. That is not the case. However, it's also worth noting he believes he also has immunity. So while he made immunity, I should say, from the Supreme Court in any actions that come out of his presidential orders. So by firing these IGs, excuse me, he is in fact saying, like, I don't care what the law is, I'm immune, and I don't want people who may be calling out mistakes that happen in agencies, which is ironic because inspector generals, what they do is find fraud, waste, and abuse that tend to save the taxpayers' money.
Julie, what's the reaction on Capitol Hill to this?
Well, it's certainly mixed. You have Republicans trying to walk the fine line of not criticizing Trump in his first week in office, but this is not a move that is going to be respected or accepted well by Republicans and Democrats alike up here. Of course, they're all coming back to town on the Senate side, at least. Later today, we'll get a chance to ask them directly. But for example, Chuck Grassley, who for as long as I've covered him under the Trump administration, under the Biden administration, has sought to bolster protections for inspectors general, has sought to keep his relationship with whistleblowers in a good place. He already put out a statement over the weekend saying that he would like more information, a, quote, further explanation from President Trump, because Trump did violate a law that Grassley and Democrats and Republicans alike have signed several years ago. It requires a 30-day notification at least from the administration to Congress when they were to, if they were to fire any of these inspectors generals. That didn't happen in this case. That's exactly what Kristen Welker pressed Senator Lindsey Graham on. Watch this.
I'm not overly worried about that. It's not the first time people have come in and put their team in place. When you win an election, you need people in your administration that reflect your views. So I'm not really worried about that.
But very quickly, the law says he's supposed to give you 30 days notice. He didn't do that. Do you think he violated the law?
Well, technically, yeah, but he has the authority to do it. So I'm not, losing a whole lot of sleep that he wants to change the personnel out.
Technically, yes. I think that was such a revealing ad, that word there. Technically, I think it certainly means that Republicans are probably not going to do much when it comes to this. Again, they control the House and the Senate, so it's really on them to do anything here.
Yeah, Basil, I mean, the now former Inspector General of the Small Business Administration spoke with my colleague Ana Cabrera. Here's how he reacted to the firings.
If it's about changing priorities in the administration and non-adherence to the rationale that we're not a part of the administration and you're going to put people in who are more like loyalists, then the whole system is in shambles.
Basil, that gentleman did go on to say that the president has the right to do this. Where is that right to do things and not do things, and on something so sensitive as this issue?
Well, I think that's why Lindsey Graham's point, is something that we really should be reflecting on going forward, because while the president does have the right to put his own appointees in place, he can do so in accordance with the law. That's why the technically yes comment is so striking, because it suggests that while the president would need, and we would expect the president to follow the law, he's going to do whatever he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. And, to Julie's point earlier and Susan's point, making sure that Republicans are in line with this is critically important, because in the House, they have the smallest majority. The Republicans have the thinnest majority. The second thinnest majority they've ever had in history. There's obviously a thin majority in the Senate. You see Mitch McConnell's comments against Hegseth the other day, which was, not necessarily a profile of courage, because he really doesn't have much to lose at this point. But it does suggest that there might be a lot of members who are uncomfortable with his moves. So he brings them tomorrow to Florida to get them comfortable with the things that he needs to do going forward. So the technically yes, but we'll do it anyway, I think is going to be a recurring theme in the next 4 years.
And Julie, meanwhile, speaking of Hegseth, the new defense secretary, arrived at the Department of Defense and spoke to reporters. Listen to what somebody had to say.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to serve on behalf of the president and serve on behalf of the country. It's an amazing job, beyond what anyone can fathom. But in talking to the chairman and so many other folks here, we're in capable hands. The war fighters are ready to go.
And Julie, I mean, this came only after the vice president broke the tie to get him confirmed. What's ahead for the president's other nominees this week?
Yeah, that was such a rare moment, by the way, a tie-breaking vote needed on any nominee, let alone somebody to lead the Pentagon Department. But over the weekend, in addition to Hegseth, you saw Kristi Noem, who is Trump's Homeland Security Secretary, be confirmed by the Senate. Over the weekend is critical here because I think you're going to see that happening over the next weeks. Congress needing to stay in to push Trump's agenda over the finish line, nominees or otherwise. And then later this week, Sean Duffy, who's going to be Trump's Department of Transportation Secretary. We expect the Senate to confirm him. And then that gets us into some of the more controversial names that we've been hearing about that have yet to have a hearing before the relevant committees of jurisdiction. I'm talking about somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who is going to be Trump's National Intelligence Director if she is confirmed. That's a big if because she does have bipartisan opposition. There are Republicans concerned about her. There are Democrats concerned about her. Even Lindsey Graham yesterday with Kristen Welker was a hard maybe. The question is, do Republicans then follow suit anyway, like we saw happen with Pete Hegseth and some of the more reluctant Republicans, Tom Tillis and others, coming around and ultimately pushing them through? I think a similar picture is going to happen with RFK Jr., his hearing the same day as Tulsi Gabbard's hearing. It's going to be a busy one. Again, Republicans certainly pushing back against him. The former Vice President Mike Pence is no fan of RFK's policy, specifically when it comes to his views on abortion. Democrats, he might pick up votes on that side of the aisle in terms of his food policies, stuff that he wants to do in that space. So a lot of interesting hearings that are coming this week. We'll see if Republicans do shore up the votes to get him across the finish line. I think if Hegseth was any reflection of that, they probably will. Jose.
And so, Susan and Basil, and let me ask you first, Basil, Gabbard, RFK Jr., Patel, who do you see as the most vulnerable?
You know, in some ways, I actually see Tulsi Gabbard as the most vulnerable. Republicans that she met with expressed real concern about her comments with respect to Edward Snowden. And this is one of those areas where, because of her comments, because of her relationships, there you can draw a line between, or at least her opponents will draw a line between, her positions and challenges and dangers for the United States. That seems to be the most controversial to me.
And Susan?
I would also agree with Basil in saying that it's Tulsi Gabbard only because it comes down to national security. But I also think JFK Jr. is certainly in the running to be knocked out of this nomination. I'm sorry, RFK Jr. Apologies.